The club without the fans is nothing.
Our voice is unique.
Well, we're all going down to the team, see all the black and white, all the smiling faces.
Our voice matters.
It's about the pride we have in our city, the pride we have in our area, and the pride we have in our team.
Newcastle United belongs to the supporters. Our voice must be heard.
The biggest asset Newcastle have is the fans.
We have all
Hello and welcome to the 1892 pledge scheme and the Newcastle United Supporters Trust presents an end of season talk-in. I tried really hard there to play our video, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen by now, of promoting our 1892 pledge, an ambitious fan-led project to put money away to one day have a stake in the club on behalf of the fans. Don't think that went that well, but I have teed up the other ones. That one's just a very big file, so I've teed up the other ones in a more succinct way. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. My name is Charlotte Robson. I'm a board member of the Newcastle United Supporters Trust. Tonight, we have a very exciting couple of hours lined up for you. We've got Alan Shearer joining us in probably about 15 minutes. So if you have questions for him, I'm going to try and ask them about the season or about, the pledge scheme and things like that. Please do pop them down in on the chat. I don't know where it is on what you're watching, but please do pop them down. I'll try and ask. Really excited to have him on board. And then we've got Keith Gillespie joining us, Warren Barton will be joining us, George Culkin and Ian Mearns MP will be joining us. We've got a couple of videos. We're very, very excited to chat through the season, to talk about the pledge, and just sort of be here this evening. So thank you for joining us. It's been kind of a crazy couple of months, I think. We have had about 18 months of a takeover going on and on and on. We've had things like the Big Six putting forward this Super League, which isn't the European Super League, to be clear. It's just the Super League. This plan was much bigger than just Europe, highlighting, I think, so much how important fan involvement in clubs is, because as we saw across the country, fans getting really upset about it, rightly so, not being consulted, being totally ignored, being told that they're legacy fans. I know a lot of you on Twitter have tongue-in-cheek added that to your Twitter handles. So yes, very, very busy time. That has led to the fan-led review of football. So this is really important. It was part of the Conservative Party's manifesto. And Ian, who is one of the guardians of the 1892 pledge scheme, is happy to talk about that. He's the chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Committee on football. So I'm really excited to kind of talk through about that with him a bit later. So get your questions in. So yes, just to highlight, tell your friends, Alan Shearer should be on in about 10 minutes-ish time. Tell your friends, get your questions in, and we'll see about asking him some and chatting through the season with him. And then also, I know that so many people are going to have questions about the takeover and all of that stuff, and things like the arbitration and all the news. So I'm sure that that George is the one that you'll want to ask those questions of. So I've allocated you guys a little 10 minutes or so to chat through. I'm sure George will be thrilled with me for doing that. But we'll hopefully get those out the way, chat through it, see what people think. Of course, fans are back in stadiums, and that's so brilliant and exciting. And even though the match on Wednesday was not great, we were very excited to see people back in the stadium. What else has happened? Newcastle are safe, so that's good. Is that enough? Do we want more of the same? Things like that. So lots to talk about this evening. And of course, pop your questions in if you're watching on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. So do get your questions in. We're probably about 10 minutes from Alan Shearer joining us. So I can see that I've got George in the background. I don't know if he's ready to come in because I didn't tell him it would be this. Oh, he's nodding. Okay, I can add him. All right. Hi, George. Thank you very much for joining me slightly earlier than I said, but I think people have probably heard enough of my voice. How are you this evening?
I'm very well, thank you, Charlotte. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I was going to take a drink, but your answer was very short.
You were expecting me to give you a long list of ailments.
Well, I mean, you just a little bit more exposition would have been great, but no, that's fine.
Okay.
How do you feel about the season in general? I'm sure we'll get a lot more into it as the night goes on, but are you happy? We're safe? Does that make you, how do you feel?
I'm very, very pleased it's nearly finished. I think that's the first thing to say. It's been a massive slog. I'm in London at the minute, which means that I'm seeing my family for the first time in 14 months. That gives us a sort of indication of where we've been in the world, I think, a little bit over the past year or so. And I'm here for the Fulham game on Sunday, so I'll be interested to see how that goes. But no, I mean, I just want it to be finished. I'm very pleased that I won't be going to Craven Cottage, fearing that, with that sense that it's going to be the relegation playoff. I think we probably all thought that a little while ago. I was at Brighton to see that catastrophic 3-0 defeat, and I was convinced then that either that we'd be toast or that it would come down to this game. So no, it's been a tremendous recovery since then, and fair play to everybody involved with the team and the club. We have to say that it's actually almost been fun on a couple of occasions. I mean, Leicester was good, but really overall it's been a bit of a shit show, hasn't it? And I'm very, very pleased it's nearly finished.
Yeah, I think that sort of sums up how most of us feel. I was texting one of the True Faith patrons today, Greg, and I was just saying, I'm kind of just pleased it's nearly done. Kind of just like feels like it's been an extended season because it started later, and we're going to have a sort of later start as well next season, and it's just I'm just kind of ready for a little bit of break and to kind of just get involved with the Euros in a way that I'm not invested. Like, I'm not invested in Newcastle, in the English national team as much as I am as Newcastle United. I don't get as upset. I don't get as frustrated. It's just more fun. So I'm kind of excited to enjoy football on that level. We've got Chris Curry says no manscaping banter tonight, please, George. Okay, strictly football. Great.
That's an in joke, but about the Athletic podcast. But yes, no, I definitely won't do that.
David Taylor setting the tone for the evening. We will never get our club back. Well, David, we disagree, and that's why we're here, and that's why we're going to be chatting through the pledge scheme as well, and how we've done so far. And for those of you watching who have pledged, I would love you to pop a comment on why. That would be amazing. If in fact seeing Alan Shearer's support online encouraged you to pledge, pop that down. I'm sure he'd love to hear that kind of story as well. And I'd love to hear people's reasons. We've had the most amazing stories. We've had stuff like people saying I've pledged in my dad's memory, because this is something he totally would have got behind or had talked about, and I just think that's so lovely, and it's very, very special. And
just
yes,
just to say to David, I mean, I think it does feel hopeless. I share that feeling. That's how it's felt a lot of the time over the past decade or more. But we've also seen over the past few weeks since the pledge has been launched, I should point out, as you said at the top, Charlotte, that fans can actually do things, and fans do actually have power, and fans, when they come together and unite and there's a collective voice, people can get stuff done. I mean, the way in which that the Super League nonsense fell apart immediately was brutal, and it was also hilarious if you're not one of those clubs, and that was people having a voice. And so we're at a moment where it feels to me like we're at a moment of change, and we have to make this count. But we can do stuff. We've shown that, and the pledge is showing that too.
You are absolutely right. Now I can see that Alan Shearer has joined us in the background. Alan, I think you can hear me, so I'm going to add you to the live stream now. Thank you. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited.
How's everyone? Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. It's such a treat, and honestly, I'm a little bit too excited for my own good. Very grateful for your time on a Friday night as well. Really, honestly, so kind of you.
Thank you.
Lots of people watching. Lots of people very excited to see you. I suppose I wanted to sort of kick off you being here, Alan, with a question. You tweeted in support of the pledge, and I wanted to sort of get a sense of why that was.
No, I'm like everyone else. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of football. I'm a fan of our football club. I'm not asking for fans to run football clubs, and I don't think anyone should do that. But I absolutely see fans having a say and having a voice in their football club, because over the last 14 months, if we've realised something, we have to realise that football without fans is not what we want it to be and where it should be or what we like it to be, because it's soulless. It has no life to it. So if there was one thing to come out of COVID over the last 14 months, and it should be how much we all, or our fans and fans all around the world, mean to football. And I just hope that is going to be recognised, and that is the case.
Oops, sorry, I was muted there. Yeah, I totally agree. I think you're so right, and I think, George, you've sort of said it in some of your pieces and stuff. The matches that you've gone to, football without fans is just totally soulless. That's the absolute right word. And you're right. A lot of people have said, "What, you think you're going to run the club? You think you're going to get this money and run the club?" No. But fans having a say in the way that the club goes is really important on matters that affect them. I think is really important. So it's just amazing to sort of have you behind the scheme. Alan, I've also got Warren Barton in the background, so I'm going to bring him in to say hello, if that's okay. Warren, hi, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem, pleasure. Alan, how are you, my friend?
What's Barton, centre part?
It's gone. I'm catching up to you, Al. I'm catching up to you.
Welcome to my world.
Exactly, yeah. It's so much easier and simple. So much easier and simple.
Of course it is, yeah. Saves you an hour every day, you see.
It used to take me 2 hours to get my hair like that. You know me.
I'm pleased you said that, because I was just about to say that.
Exactly,
oh my goodness.
Exactly.
I bet the flowing locks back in the day, everybody used to take ages. One of the questions we used to ask Keith Gillespie was when he shared with Ginola, did he take ages on his hair? And he was like, no, he just used to smoke loads. So a little bit different. So Warren and Alan, as ex-players, as pundits, as people who are engaged with the club, I guess, Alan, I'll come to you first. We're safe. Newcastle United are safe. How do you feel that the season has gone? How do you feel about it?
Well, we've come to the end of it, and we are safe. It depends how you want to look at it. I mean, we are, unfortunately, we are a football club, and we have an owner that wants to survive, and that is their desire, just to survive. So we have done that. We've done it with a little bit to spare. It's been a difficult season for many reasons, and it's been hard to watch at times. But come the end of it, the number of points that we have, how we've got there, however you want to judge it, we are where we are. Unfortunately, we're just Newcastle United who wants to avoid relegation, and we've done that. And as I said, it's been a tough watch at times, but we have survived. So I don't know. It is difficult. I mean, I always listen to fans. I listen to pundits. I listen to the manager. I listen to everyone else, and the one thing that keeps coming back is the expectation. And I just think Newcastle United, we expect that the players pull on the shirt and work their ass off for Newcastle United, and that's all that anyone ever wants. So, in the job that he's done in Steve Bruce, it hasn't been pretty at times, but he's done the job that's been asked of him from the owner.
That's just it, isn't it? You're absolutely right. It's a case of wanting to stay up, and that being it. And I suppose from that perspective, the season has been successful. You're right again to say it's not been pretty. Warren, what do you? What's your sort of take? I suppose it can't really be much different, but
it's been a grind. I think Jules said it, and Alan rightly said it as well. Watching the team, particularly early on in the season, there was quite a bit of optimism with players coming in. Got a good result against West Ham, and you're thinking, the boys are going to push on and be a bit aggressive in their tactics and obviously try and win games. And then it nullified into, the Sheffield United game away from home for me was the turning point, where you go to a team that don't look like they're going to win a game. You go into them when you've on the back of a couple of decent results, and you sit back and invite them on to win the game. And when you have people saying, well, he's not done a bad job, he's doing well, and a team that haven't won a game go and beat you like Sheffield United did. So it's just been disappointing. It's been a grind. And I can hear it in Alan's voice. He's like, we've sort of accepted it, but we all know, and because of the club and being around it, we want more than that. I want more to see. I'm not saying it when we had our time with whether it's Kevin Keegan, Sir Bobby, we're trying to have a go. We're trying to win the game. And it wasn't always the way of winning the game, but we would go out there and try and be positive. Yes, we had Alan, because that try and gives you a goal start every time. And people like Shay Given and Robley and Gary Speed. But at the end of the day, it's a club that means so much to so many people in so many ways. And it's emulated by being on the field. When you, like Alan said, you put that black and white shirt on, the least you do is try and win a game and go forward and work hard for the team. We look like sometimes in the games that we're looking not to get beat. And again, whether that's a tactics, mindset, whatever it may be, that's where it's been a grind. I think we're good enough as a squad of players to be a West Ham. Look where Everton are. I don't think there's too much difference, but it's just been the way we've gone about this season. As I said, it started off reasonably well. Then we get that performance against Sheffield United. And then it's been a grind. Yes, we've had one or two injuries, but even before that, when the players was fit, it wasn't a style of football that's accustomed to with Newcastle. The fans want to be entertained. They want to have players to go out there and epitomise what they are. It's hard-working, honest, people that go out and try and win a game. And, the excitement of going to St James's Park hasn't been there for a long time. And although I'm the other side of the world with America, you can sense the frustration and the disappointment. And do we need another season like this? It's not we're celebrating that we've stayed up. I mean, surely, I remember Steve Bruce saying in there, well, my brief is to stay up. I'm sure Alan and maybe would or not agree, but if I was the coach, I want a bit more than staying up. I want to turn the corner. It's like when Bobby took over from Rude, Was he just going to say we'll be mid-table? He had a plan, he had a vision and an idea of the club of where it should be. Yes, we had Alan, and yes, we had good players around, but there was an identity and there was a passion about the team. I don't see that, Al. I don't know whether you're the same, because you're right on the doorstep.
But when you say about the manager and about the staying, where do you think we should finish? Where do you think, or what do you think should happen? Because I think, given the circumstances, given the injuries, given COVID, given the squad we have, we are a squad that can finish anywhere in between 12th and 19th or 20th. I mean, do you think different to that?
Yeah, I would say with we've just shown in this small period, again, when we've been under pressure, the small games, we could end up at least in the top 10. At least that's got to be your benchmark.
Really?
For Newcastle. I would.
Yeah, it's all right. I get the benchmark what you want for Newcastle, but you think the squad that we have is good enough to finish in the top 10?
I would. I've just seen it in the last 7 or 8 games. I think if you give them the mindset to be aggressive and go forward, I know we've had injuries, and every club has had their injuries. Look at Liverpool, what's happened to them, but they're still able to turn the corner. And listen, they've got far maybe better individuals than we have. But when I look at what we've got and the personnel and the mindset that's changed, probably in the last 7 or 8 weeks, we can go to Anfield and get a result. We can go to certain games, Burnley, and get a result. When we play on the front foot, when we're a bit more aggressive in the way we play, defend a little bit better. You've seen that in recent weeks. So why can't you do that the early part of the season going forward?
If I can interject very, very briefly.
Yeah,
I want to listen. I want to listen to these two people talk. But the point is, it's not a club that is built or that's interested in finishing in the top 10, isn't it? I mean, you can have that view about the squad as it is now, but if they finish 10th, they won't push on because they never have done. You know, on the rare occasions that they have a good situation or a good season or put themselves into a healthy situation where there's something to build on, they don't do it. They never have. And that's the thing. That's the thing that worries me, is that, you know, it's not a club. There's nothing to buy into. You know, what are we supposed to buy into this version of Newcastle? What are fans supposed to buy into moving forward? We've had 2 horrible seasons that have been affected by the pandemic. We know that, and all the rest of it. It's like the club has had mitigating factors, and it's fine to sort of say we just have to get through this season. We just have to get through this season. But this version of Newcastle has been doing that for 14 years, just getting through. That's all they're interested in.
So I totally agree. And, you know, Warren, I agree with the sentiment. I would love to see us pushing on for top 10. That is the absolute dream. So somebody, there's lots of comments coming in, so I've lost it, but we should be, you know, we should be competing with the likes of Everton, stuff like that. I totally believe that. Let's talk a little bit more positively though, shall we? So we've had people commenting. Stephen Egan says, very tough season. Where would we have finished the season without Willock, though? What a loan signing. Alan, have you been impressed with him? I mean, you must have been.
Yeah, hugely impressed. And I think the manager did very well in getting him in. I know it's taken him a little bit of time to get in there, but when he's been into the side, he's given us a huge option, something that we haven't had. He's given us legs in midfield. He's given us someone who can get forward, who can break into the box and finish off those chances that we want him to do. So he's been a huge positive in Newcastle season. I mean, the 7 goals and some of his goals that he has scored have been hugely important. So yeah, I would love to see him in the black and white shirt next season. Do I think he'll be there? I really couldn't answer that. There's only one guy that can answer that, and that's the owner. Is he going to be prepared to spend enough to get him in? Because with him doing well, he's added a couple of notes onto the transfer fee and onto his salary as well, which he will demand, or his agent will demand. So that I would love to see him in our shirt next season, but I really don't know whether we'll do enough to get him here.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I know there's sort of little snipes in the media now. Arteta saying no, he's staying. He's done really well there, and he's staying at Arsenal. He's got a contract with Arsenal, but the journalists saying, well, that's a tactic too. They're just pushing up his price, all of this stuff. So it would be great. He's fit into the side so well, and we really needed those legs, like you say, in midfield. I'll come to you both with your sort of player of the season as well. So Warren, I'll let you start. If you have a player of the season, is it Willock, Wilson, ASM, someone else? Who would it be?
First of all, I've got to apologise as well. I must apologise to Alan. So congratulations. I know I had it on the phone now, but to get into the Hall of Fame for Newcastle is magnificent. So I must say,
yeah, I was. You're absolutely right, Warren. I was waiting for that. Thank you. Well done.
Yeah, I do apologise. I know I text you, but
you did.
on
You
a
did
serious
text me.
note, I mean, fantastic. I was so pleased for you and your family and everybody else. So I get that out of the way. I think Almiron has done well. He works extremely hard. But you're judged on goals, and I think Wilson has got the 12 goals that we've needed. If Willock, as Alan rightly said, would have been here maybe 3 or 4 months. So I will go with Wilson up front. I know the fans have said it. He's a little bit of an X factor. So that's where I'd go with him. I think if we'd had him a bit more consistently, he's not an Alan Shearer, but he's someone that if you give him, I don't know, 3 chances, you're going to put one of them away, or 2 chances, he'll put one of them away. So from that point of view, I go with him. Trying to be positive, keep it upbeat. So I'll go with a striker. What do you say, Al? Don't go with a defender, surely.
No, you're joking. I'm not going with a defender. No, I'm going with Callum. He's delivered the goals in a very difficult season. And people will say, well, there's been a few penalties, but you have to stick the penalties away, and you have to have the balls to get up there and take it and do what you have to do. So, and I know he's missed a few games with injuries, but that's what he is. We knew that when we signed him, that he's, because of you look at the rest of his career, he is going to have injuries throughout the season. But I would have to say Callum Wilson, definitely.
Yeah,
what's his strengths? You look at him and then, yes, pace, this, but what other things is he good at? What can he work on from you looking at him?
He stretches teams, Warren. He does something for Newcastle that we haven't got when he's not on the team. He's someone who is able and has the ability to run in behind, and he's very clever. He times his runs really well. And Newcastle are a different team when he's been in that 11, and we haven't got anyone like him that can do that job. So as well as he's finishing, it's his ability to run in behind.
Yeah, and he won Player of the Season. Newcastle United gave him that very small trophy that he was photographed with. So he won Player of the Season. He has been excellent. I think there's a real, you talk, for all the talk that we've had here about coming out and not wanting it, or not, Callum Wilson wants to score goals. You can see that, like, he is after notching those goals up, and it's such a pleasure to kind of see that. Joel Linton has gotten slightly better over the last season or so, and seems to have got more comfortable in the team, but he doesn't go after the ball in the same way. He's not hungry for the goals in the same way, and we really, really needed that in the squad. So I totally agree. I think he's been excellent, and clearly Warren, go.
So I just want to tell the fans a quick story about Alan. What makes Alan, in my opinion, better than anybody else? And we've lucky enough with Les Ferdinand, Peter Beardsley, Tino, Ginola, all these players. When Alan come over for the world record for 15 million, and obviously I've been involved with Alan with England a little bit, but the first thing that jumped out to me is how ruthless he was in training, scoring goals. I don't want to embarrass you too much, Al, but it's only when you sit back and you think about how we used to train and how we used to go out and play the games, that other strikers you would see, even Paul Kitson, who was another good player, Bellamy and these other players, they would go in after training. But Al would always, even when he got 200 goals, 200, whatever it was, he would still say to Nobby or Lauren Robert or me or Griffin, whoever it was, Aaron, where you go? Let's put some balls in. And that's, for me, Al, that always, not only your mental toughness and you as a player and as a person, but that what puts you a cut above the rest. And there's always some great players. I'm talking about really, really good players. But that's what made Alan. So when people think about Alan Shearer playing for England and wearing a number 9, it wasn't just that on a Saturday or a Wednesday or a Tuesday. It was a cold Monday afternoon, getting behind and putting some balls in the box. I just want fans to understand what goes through someone like Alan's pedigree and mindset. You know, other players be walking in, getting in their cars, going back, but he'd be the first one there doing his exercises in the gym at Chesley Street, drop the kids off at school. We'll all be in there having a cup of tea, and then we go and do our training. Then afterwards, they'll all be getting in their cars, doing it, and Alan would be out there with 2 or 3 of us finishing it off. So I think people have to understand what goes in. He doesn't just happen to be a Hall of Famer or a top player in the Premier League just by accident. And that's what I think misses a little bit at the moment with younger players going through. But I've always wanted to tell you that, Al.
No, thank you. I mean, thanks for it. I mean, I appreciate that. And I mean, all my time at Southampton and Blackburn and Newcastle, I probably had a certain way of telling everyone what I wanted to do in terms of whether I wanted you or Ginola or Keith Gillespie or whatever.
Yeah, you did. You'd turn around and say, where the fucking hell are you going? You'd say, where the fuck are you going? Across the ball.
Yeah, I get that. But I don't think I ever fell out with anyone because of that. I mean, I said it in training, I said it in the matches. But you know what? I was the first in the bar and having a pint with everyone and having a laugh and a joke. But I just think it was my job to score goals, and I needed everyone around me to help me score goals, and that's the way I was driven. And when I was a 15-year-old kid, I wasn't the best player, and I wasn't one of these guys who could go past 5 or 6 people. But I was the best at working hard and the best at being on time, and I perhaps had the best attitude, and I think that's how I got to where I did. So I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
That's it. It's the worst.
He used to hate pre-season. Tell him about pre-season.
Yeah, I didn't like pre-seasons. No, I was no good at running. I was at the back. I was always at the back and running. But you know what, Warren? Get the balls out. Get the balls out.
As soon as I see that head rolling, I knew he was in trouble. Once that head started rolling, he was in trouble.
That's right.
Oh my God,
That's
amazing.
right.
Alan, I know that you have very kindly given us a little bit more time than you've said, and I'm conscious it's your Friday night, so I will let you go very shortly. I will ask you one question somebody's asked, which I think is a decent one. Who would your realistic signing be this summer? If we're being realistic, we're not going hundreds of millions, obviously, on players. Where do we need to strengthen? Probably as the first sort of consideration, and then who would you realistically hope we could sign?
Well, I think the standout signing has to be, it's obvious, it's staring us in the face. We have him already. He's sampled a small part of St. James's Park already, and it's Joe Willock. I mean, I jokingly said the other night on Match of the Day when Gary said, well, you're not going to get him because he's going to go back to Arsenal. And I said, well, that's rubbish. He'd like to come and play for a big club. I mean, there was a little bit of truth in there, because I would love him to come and sample 52,000 at St. James's Park when it's rocking, when it's going well, when we're getting the right result, and the reception he and the team would get for one of his goals that he scored for us. So I think it's an absolute no-brainer. Newcastle have to try and break the bank and try and get him here, and for him to sample the brilliant atmosphere that our fans can give him. Whether we will or not, I don't know, but I bloody well hope so.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he got a taste of it on Wednesday night, and you could see it on his face. Everybody was shouting, "Joe Willock, we want you to stay," and he was beaming. Absolutely. It was, and that was only a couple of hundred who had stayed behind. If it was 52,000 in full voice.
Well, as you know, I work with Wrighty most Saturday nights, Ian Wright, and Ian speaks to Joe and has been a little bit of a mentor to him. So I keep saying to him, if he ever needs or wants anything, my number's there, and I would love him to sample 52,000 on Saturday afternoon at Newcastle when things are going well, because there is no better place in the world of football than St. James's Park on a Saturday afternoon when that's happening. So, but it might be out of his hands, but I really hope that we break the bank to try and bring him here, because he's been incredible for Newcastle over the last few months.
Absolutely. Warren, did you want to jump in? And Alan, I will let you go after Warren speaks, I promise.
I just want to ask Al, what do you miss, my friend, about the game? What do you miss?
I just miss the adrenaline rush. I mean, I don't miss you and the lads in the dressing room, that's for sure. I just miss the adrenaline. Where do you get the adrenaline rush from? I mean, of scoring, of running out at our stadium. That's what you miss. And whatever you do in the years after you've retired, you can never ever get that back.
Lovely.
We might do live television, we might do bits, but you never get that adrenaline rush back of running out at the ground or scoring, and it's an incredible buzz. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Alan, so much for joining us this evening. I'm so grateful, and thank you so much for your ongoing support for the 1892 Pledge Scheme. We're very grateful to have somebody like you behind the scheme. So all you have to do is click off and you can go and enjoy your Friday night.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Good luck to everyone, and thank you very much.
Thanks so much again.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that was fun. That was a really fun time with Alan Shearer there. Thank you, Warren, for the memories there. We're going to make you reminisce as well with Keith a little bit later. We've got loads more coming. People watching, please do stay tuned. Warren's going to stick with us. George is with us. Ian's in the wings. I can see him. He waved at Alan. Oh no, he clapped Alan before. Nobody can see him but me, but he keeps waving. It's just adorable. Thank you everybody who's watching. Please do whack your questions in. We're going to keep talking about the season. We're going to keep talking about the fan-led review. We're going to talk about the bloody Super League, all of that stuff. But I will pause us, I think, and play, if I can. Those of you who've been watching since the very beginning may know that this may not go right, but I'm going to try and just remind everybody why we're here with a little bit of an animation about the 1892 Pledge Scheme.
Introducing the 1892 Pledge Scheme from the Newcastle United Supporters Trust. We are one of the most celebrated fan bases in football. We embody the spirit of the greatest city going, Newcastle upon Tyne. But you'll find black and white running throughout the entire North East and just about everywhere else in the British Isles. But we're not just the best fans in the country these days, but the best fans on the planet, because we're everywhere. So what is the 1892 Pledge Scheme? Well, we are asking you, the supporters of this historic football club, to make a small monthly payment by direct debit or a little bit when you can, so fans can buy a small share of our club whenever it's next sold. Or be ready to save it should we fall down divisions, making us affordable enough for fans to buy outright. With our global fan base paying in a tiny contribution, we'll get there united. And we've appointed some reliable people and familiar faces to keep that money safe, acting as guardians for the cash you pay in. This is your football club. It belongs to us. And by giving something small monthly or when we can, we will raise enough to have a small stake in our club. And what happens if we fail? Then your guardians will donate all of that money to a selection of North East charities. So please, pledge what you can and help take Newcastle United forward. This is the 1892 Pledge Scheme. Are you with us?
There we go. That is a animation there, expertly narrated by Emile Franchi, just describing to you what the pledge scheme is, and all of that stuff. Stephen Egan saying, "Hope everybody watching has contributed to the 1892 pledge scheme already. If you have, thank you so much. Right? Why? Tell us why. Tell us all your stories, and if you've pledged a one-off, consider a monthly. That's how we keep this going. We are I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but my phone has them. So I'll get you the numbers shortly and I can give you an update on where we are and where we hope to be. But in the wings this time, I promised some takeover chat, which I think we'll do when Ian joins us shortly anyway. But in the wings here, I see Keith Gillespie poking his head out. Hi, Keith. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Hi, Charlotte. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. We've got Warren Barton and George here. I don't know what you can see on your screen. I know I've got the full sort of suite here.
Hi, Warren. Hi, George. How's things?
Hi, Keith. How are you, my friend?
All right,
Looking
Keith.
good with the
I'm
beard,
good,
by
mate.
the way.
I'm just lazy to shave.
It's
Nice
that
to see you, my
lockdown
friend. It's been a
look,
long
Keith.
time.
It's a
Been a
lockdown
long
look. I
time.
love it. I can't grow anything myself. I keep trying. So Keith, thanks so much for joining us. We've just had Alan Shearer on chatting through. We've stolen quite a lot of his Friday night, and I'm going to steal some of yours now. We are, of course, talking about the 1892 Pledge Scheme, a fan-led project to try and raise enough money to buy a stake as fans in Newcastle United when it is sold, because we will be sold eventually. Like, that is just fact. Eventually. It may not be tomorrow, it may not be next year, but eventually it's going to happen, and we want to say when it happens. But we're also here to talk about the season and to talk about memories and to talk about happier times, and that's one of the reasons it's so great to have you on, Keith and Warren, and also George, because as a man who has to watch every minute of every game, he's got a pretty good insight as well. So somebody has asked a question about the takeover. I do just want to say, well, the arbitration and all that, I do just want to say that we will do a little segment on that just to sort of get it out of the way. George's face is not a happy one, but we will get there. We'll get there. Keith, yes, thank you so much for joining us. Somebody's asking, Warren, excuse me if this is not a good story, and you can just nod to me, but he says, tell the story of you and Rob Lee in the limo. I don't know about that one. So
I can't hear you. It keeps breaking up a little bit. I don't know. I can't
all
hear you
right,
about
then that
sorry.
one's, yeah, no worries. You know what? You're in America. The signal's not great. We don't have to go
sorry
into
about
it.
that. Sorry about that.
Keith,
No.
you don't even have to worry. Keith, we were talking before we got our sort of overview of the of people's feelings on the season. How do you feel that the season has gone? Are you pleased with it? We're staying up. Is that enough? I mean, how do you feel?
I mean, it started off really good. I mean, the first year of the season, I thought, well, there would be no chance of even flirting with relegation. But I think as the season progressed, the team, it showed that there was a real lack of quality at times. I know we finished the season pretty well, which is good. And the thing about it is, it's not good enough in terms of Newcastle that, we're happy with just staying up. We need to be, doing what West Ham are doing. We need to sort of challenge and further up the table. And it's going to be a big sort of transfer window coming up, because, there needs to be better players coming in. You look at what they did last year. Callum Wilson was a great signing. Hopefully, there's talk that Willock might be coming. I think he'd be a great signing. But other than that, the signings that they made, I don't think it really worked. So it's disappointing. But I think the good thing is that they finished the season strongly, as opposed to last year when they realised they were sort of safe. They finished the season really poorly. So, lately the performances have been a lot better. Because I did fear for them after they lost against Brighton, but thankfully, we stayed up. As I say, that's not good enough. Warren knows as well from playing at the club, what a special club it is, and just surviving is just not good enough.
Yeah,
Kate, just you said it well, and I said the same thing to Alan as well. That the last 7-8 games, why wouldn't we play like that earlier on in the season? I mean, you're there.
Well,
why would you think the team haven't played like that? October, November, December time.
Exactly. There's been sort of patches here and there where performances have been okay, but they haven't really been able to string quite a few results together. They've had performances here and there, as I say, but I don't know why performance improved lately. Maybe the fact that they realised they got safe, they could play with, no fear then. But it shouldn't really take that. Just playing with, now that you're safe, playing with no fear, you should be going out and putting in, performance like they have been lately, the majority of the season. And unfortunately they haven't. But for me, it goes down to the squad, because, I don't think the squad is strong enough. And there's there's too many positions where I think they're quite weak. So, you know, as I say, it's going to be a big window where they're going to have to improve.
It's interesting though, because I was at Leeds a couple of weeks ago and saw them play Tottenham, and they were absolutely superb. And you know, they've had big injuries. They didn't have Calvin Phillips that day. They didn't have Rafinha that day. They both came on. And there is a way that a club can have a way of playing, and it can be from top to bottom and all that. And it feels like at Newcastle this season and last season, we've just been bouncing between system, bouncing between formations, bouncing between personnel. And, you know, partly that comes down to the manager because it has to, but also partly it's because the club don't team build. They don't do team building. I mean, Joelinton is the absolute classic example of that he was bought for 40 million quid to replace a striker when he's not a striker, and given to a manager who didn't particularly want him and then clearly didn't know what to do with him. And that's been the way Newcastle have been for ages. I mean, Leeds, you know, I've only been to one of their games, but they were so impressive, and they represented the Leeds that I would want to see. You know, the Leeds that I think of in my head as that aggressive, running, in your face, don't give a toss about anybody else. And it's great to, you know, it was great to see. Newcastle could be like that if they had a system, if they had ambition, if they knew what they were doing from top to bottom.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right in terms of Leeds, because it doesn't matter. You know, if they're 3-0 up, 3-0 down, they don't change their philosophy. You know, they just want to play football. And as you say, that's the manager's instilled that into those players, what he wants them to do. And they don't sway away from that. And that's why they've probably been a success this season, because every player knows exactly what the manager wants them to do.
So interesting points that are coming up from quite a few people. Warren, you mentioned there, why in November, December was it not like that? Why? A lot of people coming into the comments and saying Graham Jones is the reason. Graham Jones wasn't there then. Is it the case that, like, from a player's point of view, maybe Warren and Keith, if you could opine, is it the case that a new assistant coach could impact the squad in such a way that would, I mean, it's not been, let's be realistic, it's not been a seismic change since like January, since he joined, but it has been a bit of a change, and there has been a bit more positivity on the pitch. Is it the case in your experience, or maybe you don't have that experience, but could you imagine it making that much of a difference, Warren?
Yeah, I think it can. A different voice coming in. I go back to when me and Keith was playing, and Kevin Keegan brought Mark Lawrence in to try and straighten up the defence. That just had a negative effect because he couldn't coach, he couldn't get us together. So Kevin at that time tried to bring in a new voice to help us be a bit more stronger at the back, but it unfortunately it didn't work, because Mark couldn't put a session on. He couldn't do it there. Where now you've got another coach that's come in that's worked with Roberto Martinez, well, top class players, and maybe a different voice and a different direction. And even for Steve Bruce to maybe step back and let him do some of the sessions, maybe could have been a bit more refreshing. But ultimately, I don't know Steve that well, but I played against him for a number of years. I can't imagine him letting him rule the roost and take over. I think Steve's still one of these guys that he will stick to his foundation. He will stick to his system. Yes, there was one or two injuries, but even before that, they started, sitting behind the ball, Joelinton sitting deep, and then, trying to play on the counter-attack. But unfortunately, they wasn't as good enough in the counter-attack and defending as well. So they got caught out and kept inviting pressure on. So maybe a coach, Keith, can come in and have some sort of impact. But I'd be very surprised if someone like Steve would let him take over and do it. But because, as you've seen, it's sort of died down a little bit. Then there's been one or two, and then it's died down. So there's not been that lift that we would have hoped to have from a new coach coming in.
Yeah, what do you think, Keith? Do you think the same? Do you think it could have made that much of a difference? I think
it probably can make some sort of difference. I was actually thinking the same thing as Warren when he spoke about Mark Lawrence, because it didn't work then. But certainly, as Warren says, a new voice, somebody for Steve Bruce to lean on, some maybe fresh ideas that maybe he's learned, under the likes of Roberto Martinez when he's been working with the Belgium squad. So new fresh ideas is always going to help. It gives the manager other options. But as Warren says, it all comes down to the manager. And he's where the buck stops. And if he thinks that bringing somebody in can help, and it has helped, it's been a good appointment in the end. But as Warren says, it all comes down to what Steve Bruce, ultimately does and thinks.
Yeah, absolutely right. So, sort of on the same vein, Gallagher Shots, who is very kindly this evening one of the fan channels that is hosting us, as well as NUFC 360 through theirs, The Trust, True Faith, and Newcastle Fans TV. Thank you. I just want to shout you all out. It's very kind of you to use your platforms this evening to get our message far and wide. Very grateful, and yeah, just absolutely brilliant. Gallagher Shots saying, how important was the likes of Terry Mack to the players? Keegan got all the plaudits, but what was Terry Mack like? Dive in if you want to.
I'll let Keith go first.
I mean, Terry knows himself. Terry wasn't really a coach. He never really put on a session. Terry's big strength was his communication with the players was very good. He was great in the dressing room. He had a great sense of humour. And him and Kevin just sort of bounced off each other. Terry Mack, wasn't hired for his coaching ability. He was hired for the way he can speak to players and be the sort of go-between at times between the manager and the players. And the players loved him. And Terry himself would know that he was never comfortable if he was having to stand there and take on a session. That just wasn't Terry. But Terry was important in that Terry did speak. He was such a great player, and his time at Liverpool, Newcastle. So when Terry did speak, you did listen and you took everything on board. But he was a fantastic character, and he was a big part of the success that we had then under Kevin. Because as I say, the sort of the chemistry that Kevin and Terry had between each other was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, Terry was brilliant. One, he was fantastic at head tennis. Even KK was unbeatable at Maiden Castle. Keith just touched on it there. Even Terry would speak to, say, a Rob Lee or a Lee Clark or Keith or even David Ginola. Just the little things, the information. I mean, he won the European Cup how many times? He tells the player he was. And he was brilliant as a buffer that, because sometimes Kevin was so emotional. We didn't lose that many games, but when he was so emotional. Terry was great to go and talk to, whether it was the captain Peter or Les or Keith, whoever wanted to go and talk to Terry. He would find a way to get their point across to Kevin and say, look, the lads need this without, one of us upsetting him. And he wanted to be around. His knowledge of the game was fantastic. A great character. Again, funny to be around. And that emulated Keith, didn't it? All of us at that time. Every time we would go for training, we would socialise together. You've seen the picture where there's 25 of us going out on a Monday night for some Italian, and then we'd go and win a game at the weekend. Then we'd be the first ones in at training together. So that time, and Terry was a big part of that because he was such fun to be around, and you wanted to be at the Maiden Castle. You wanted to get in early, even though the facilities wasn't great. We would all be there early, Keith, and everybody having a cup of tea, getting ready for the game, laughing and joking, and the training. It was just a joy to be around. And then you had 4,000 or 5,000 fans outside in the pouring rain and the cold weather waiting for us to come out and have a game. It was just emulated everything. Terry was a big part of that, and made you, when there's a couple of difficult times, that you could go and ask him a couple of things and he had the answer, and he wouldn't let anybody know. He'd just tell you that he was fantastic.
It's amazing. Sorry. I keep muting myself and then forgetting that I've muted myself. So I'm sure that's a problem everybody's had in the pandemic, right? So Lee Foster, this is a good question. And somebody asked a funny question on Twitter to Alan Shearer, which I couldn't bring myself to ask him, about why he wore long sleeves in like the hottest country he'd ever played in and only ever wore short sleeves in Newcastle. But did the team appreciate the beauty of the kits he played in at the time, the home grandad collar and the away Dennis the Menace, or was it just another kit? This is a great question because I don't know if you two know how much cult kits are getting on, like money wise, and how much love they're getting online. I know Ketch, who who writes for the Chronicle and makes his own podcast. Keith, you run it recently. He loves old goalkeeper kits. He's got like all of Shaka's, all of Pavel's, and they're just the most amazing kind of arty pieces. Did you realize at the time that they'd be iconic, or did you just think, great, here's my strip, I'm going to play football today?
I think.
Sorry, Keith.
No, I mean you don't really then, but I think now when you look back and any kit that I've ever played in, when I look back and I sort of see it now, the grandad collar is the one for me. It's the you speak to most Newcastle fans and they look back and they go, that was their favourite kit. And maybe it's because we sort of had a team that was doing something on the pitch as well. That might have something to do with it. But for me, the grandad collar was one of my personal favourites. I don't know about you, Warren.
Well, Keith, you always wore it in a size XXL, didn't you? Like just billowing off you.
One size. They had one size. There wasn't a choice. They didn't have a choice.
Well, exactly. I was a little bit leaner than the rest. I wasn't built like the rest of the boys, so everything looked big on me back then.
Yeah, but you could run, my friend. You could run. Don't worry about that. But no, I think them times. I remember at the club shop at 12 o'clock at night, there's 5,000 people waiting to get a grandad collar shirt. I think people know I like my fashion, my clothes and things like that. So I remember the denim one as well. The V-neck one was a good one. We've had some shockers as well. Remember that one, Keith? The green and orange away shirt. That was awful as well. But we've had some good ones. We had and maybe the Newcastle Brown Owl being on there. That was a big, with the city, we'd go and have the Player of the Month awards and stuff like that. And so that was a big part of it. So yeah, the grandad collar was, I think, it emulated everything that the city was. It was vibrant, it was cool, it was different, it was edgy, and so was a team. Like you had Ginolo on one side, Keith on the other, Pedro, Les. It was phenomenal. The players that we had, and that involved everything in the city as well, with the kit and people being around. 10,000 people waiting for season tickets to get involved. And whether we played home or away, we didn't matter. We were going to try and win the game. So we had a great time. It was a wonderful time. I think, Keith, you can maybe touch on it, but for us as young men playing in that time was a special time. We haven't, I don't know, 10 years, but we go back and we start reminiscing and laughing about it, because it was just a great time to be involved with Newcastle in the area and the football club.
Yeah, it was just the most unbelievable period. I think I remember at the start of the season, Kevin Keegan was probably the only one that thought that we could win the league. But after about 4 or 5 games, we had everyone believing that. And I know we obviously did in the end, but we put up a hell of a fight to try and get there. But as Warren says, it was just an incredible time, and Kevin was great as well, because his relationship with the supporters was so important, and he wanted the players to have that as well. Hence, having open training grounds with thousands down watching, and it just brought everybody together. And I think Newcastle's just a city where if the football team's doing well, everyone's doing well, and that's the way it was for us at that time.
Keith, Warren, sorry, Charlotte, I was just going to say,
no, please.
You showed us what the club can be. You showed us what the city can be. You played football that we've never seen before, and that we've never seen again. And you gave us something so incredibly valuable and beautiful and vibrant and dynamic and life affirming. It was perfect. I mean, I'm saying it's perfect, and we know it didn't have the perfect ending, but you gave us memories that will last for an absolute lifetime. And we love you for it, and we treasure you for it. And I look at Man City playing now, and they play absolutely wonderful football. But you gave that to us a very, very long time ago, and you showed us what the club could be, and we'll always be eternally grateful for that.
Yeah,
I think also, George, just to touch,
everybody.
Just to touch on it, I think people would say as well, we knew that as well. We knew the responsibility we had on a Sunday or a Monday, that if we won the game, and we sort of thrived on that, Keith, didn't we? That was the adrenaline and the pump of going, look, if we do well, we know this city's going to be fine. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And we embraced that. Yeah, it was pressure, wasn't it, Keith? It was a lot of it, but we sort of like looked around, and like I said, me and Keith, it was easy for me. I just give the ball to Keith in space, and he, like he did against Barcelona, destroy people, and that's how we played. That's how, and we thrived off of that. Going around the street saying, "You better do well this week, Martin. You better do well this week, Gillespie." We sort of we wanted more of that, and we thrived, and we bounced off of each other with it as well, and it was part of being successful.
Yeah, I think in terms of the squad that we had such a good squad, and you look around the dressing room, you thought, yeah, most weekends you're like, yeah, we can get a result here. And I mean, you look at that season where we did come so close, and it's one thing I always say, I mean, you know, league table never lies, but for me, it did that year because, you know, we were, you know, the best team in the country. We were box office, everyone wanted to watch us, and unfortunately we didn't go over the line. And again, you know, another thing I always sort of say is, you know, people sort of say, who came second in the league 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Nobody can remember it, but they'll always remember Newcastle side, you know, because of the way that we played football and the way we became everyone's second favourite team. And, you know, as Warren says, it was just a joy, you know, to be in and around the city when, you know, when things were going well for everyone on the pitch.
Absolutely. And actually that kind of ties into what my next question was. Just to say that football 1997, you keep doing something like a stick. I've never seen it before, but I'm very wary of clicking on it in case it's some kind of virus. I realize I sound like I'm 100 years old. I don't understand, but he's saying he's enjoying it. So thank you. Separate to that, I wanted to kind of touch on, you kind of have mentioned Barcelona, and Sam from Newcastle Fans TV says Keith's performance against Barcelona remains one of the greatest in Newcastle history. You both played against Barcelona, and so I can't help but think that means, you know, you have a real sense of how good this club could be because you were there playing top flight football in Europe. Does it frustrate you that pundits sort of almost, well, in my opinion, kind of talk down to Newcastle fans? Does it? Do you have a sense of why? You know, that it's very frustrating that these pundits sort of say that we need to rein it in a little bit when you've been there and you know what it could be, Warren?
Yeah, it's frustrating. I think, you know, that night in particular, Keith, it wasn't just the fact that we were playing Champions League for the first time. It was playing against Barcelona. And then when we walked in St James's Park and the advertisement had all been changed, the stars of the Champions League, the music as well, and you're playing with Rivaldo, you know, Luis Enrique, Figo, these type of players. And, you know, Kenny Dalglish has said, particularly with Keith with his pace, that they do like to push forward. Louis van Gaal was the coach. If there's some space in behind me, I don't know what you had for breakfast, Keith, that day, but you was on fire. You know, we talk about Tino and how great he was. But in my opinion, Shane makes a good saves, but Keith was a match winner for me. He was, you know, time after time taking him on. So yeah, it is frustrating because, you know, the team have got back there with Bobby Robson. They played in the San Siro and got a draw there. They've played in Champions League and had great results. But we know, because we've been involved in a club, what it can be. These pundits that, you know, live wherever they live, they don't really know it for a day and go back. They don't understand the connection that the fans and the club is in the city. And, you know, when you go into Newcastle, the first thing you see is St James's Park. You know, play for Man United, arguably one of the biggest clubs in the world. But, you know, in Manchester, you've got City fans, you've got other fans around. Newcastle, you don't have a choice, and rightly so. And, you know, it's frustrating that we've been there. It was just a special night walking into the stadium and getting ready. And as I said, when we had the likes of Tino and Keith, you know, they was on a totally different level. We made it a little nerve-wracking at the end, but we'd done enough in the first hour to win the game. So it was a special time, you know, and it was a special game. And not only playing in the Champions League, but you're playing against Barcelona. And I think that adds to the tension and the excitement of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, Keith, similar sort of memories for you, just the most sort of one of the most special moments of your career, it would be for me.
What did you have for breakfast?
Oh, I think Keith has frozen. Oh no, he's there. He's back. He's back. I apologise.
I was for a second. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. You're there.
I was for a second there. I don't do breakfast. You should know me by now. I was the fussiest eater ever. You've forgotten that. But yeah, I mean, it was just. I think it was just one of them nights, and I think in terms of like on the right hand side, myself and you, we had a great understanding. I knew that when you got the ball, didn't want to complicate it for me straight away. Just kept feeding me.
We're in and out slightly with you, Keith. Is that the same for you guys?
Yeah. But I know Keith that well. I know exactly what he's saying. We know each
you
other
can
so
just
well.
piece it together.
Apologies. I know he was frozen, but it was such an easy thing to say. I knew just to give him the ball. I was never going to catch him up, and he was just going to, put the ball in the box, and the rest was history. But even then, when his camera frozen, I could still understand what he was saying. That's how well we got on.
You go. You're a little bit back with us, Keith. Apologies. It can be. It happens. It happens. David Greenwell there saying Keith Gillespie crossed to Aspria. I don't think we realised at the time what quality we were watching. Somebody else wanted to ask, and I apologise to you, the person that asked the question. I cannot find your comment, but they wanted to know what it was like to play with Tino. Warren. Yeah, they said again. I can't find the comment, and I do apologise. But they said I think it must have been interesting, or that must have been fun. What was it like to play with Tino Aspria?
It was all of the above. He was first of all a fantastic player. I think Tino doesn't get maybe the credit. How individual, the balance, the skill. Don't play him away from home because he's a liability. As soon as the shirt started coming out and the socks, don't ever play him away from home, but play him at home. It was such a joy to be around. His limitation of his language was limited, but we all knew what he was. And Keith in particular and Alan had a great relationship with Tino. Them two really clicked with Tino, and it made it easy for him to be around. But just a wonderful player. I mean, two people you should watch on Instagram. Laurent Ribert is either smoking cigars or eating or drinking, or Tino's either at a pool party or selling condoms. So, there's people, if you're going to follow anyone on Instagram, it's them too. But Tino was brilliant, a great personality, wonderful player. And I know Keith got on really, really well. Again, the language barrier was there, but they really, really clicked. And with Big Al as well. So that was a real three unusual players, but they all really got on really, really well with him.
Yeah, Tino actually still rings me now. He FaceTimed me a few weeks ago. I never answered. Sometimes I don't answer because honestly, you can't understand a word he says even still. But he just gives me abuse anyway. But when I don't answer, he leaves me those voice notes and all. Every other word is a swear word, calling me this, that, and the other. But I did have a great relationship with him, and as I say, I still do now. But he was a one-off. Tino, there's times where he could be infuriating to play with, and then other times, he was just sensational, like the Barcelona game. It's like sometimes you just didn't know what he was going to do next, and you got the feeling he didn't even know what he was going to do next. But he was a great character. He just came into the club and just fitted in straight away. Had this crazy sense of humor, crazy dress sense. Remember his Disney what I call it, shirt that he would have wore to the games with Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and all, to match days, and everyone just took the mick out of him and he just laughed it off. But an incredible player, and that night against Barcelona, the hat trick he got will just go down in memory for a long, long time.
Amazing. Somebody is saying, all right, Keith and Warren, Nick Emerson here, Tino's ex-interpreter. Great to remember the Tino stories. I can't verify that, but weird lie if it was a lie. So I'm going to go with that's probably quite true. Awesome. Hi, Keith. Hi, Nick. Not Keith. I was just reading Keith's name off the screen. I think,
Tell
George,
tell Nick when we should get our money back, because if he was Tino's interpreter for 2 years, Tino knew 4 words of English. So wherever Nick is, he should give money back to Newcastle, because he's been nicking a living. He knew 4 words in 2 years.
He just taught him how to abuse Keith Gillespie, and that's like job done. That's all he needed to do.
I dread to think what those 4 words were as well. But anyway,
Well, George, you got a rough idea. You got a rough idea what it would
I have Mark watching, who I think probably feels a bit sorry for George not getting much of a word in edgeways, although you look like you're having a nice evening, George. What's your standout memory of that golden period, sort of 92 to 2003, that sort of 10-year period, George? What's your standout memory?
No, I feel like a fraud being in this company, but it's just so incredible to listen to everyone. It's just beautiful. I could listen to this forever. My memories are much less interesting than theirs, but I mean, 92, 93 is my kind of go-to season, because I'd come back from college, and I went to every home game, and I was in the stand, and it was just that magical rebirth of the club, and then being there for that kind of golden decade, first as a fan, and then being around Newcastle as a young reporter was just incredible. And being part of that as a writer, the first job I had, making contacts, getting to know people. The title season, I'll still call it that. It just has to be the standout. It's the kind of football that I'll always think Newcastle should play, because I saw them do it. And I love it. I mean, and Bobby Robson was very important to me as a kind of fellow and as a journalist, and for kind of obvious reasons. But that season is just it's just astonishing.
Warren
George,
very politely with his hand up. Go ahead.
George, who was good to interview and who was bad to interview in that time? And don't hold back.
Oh, I've got a few stories. And I'm not sure if I can name and shame. I mean, Keegan was obviously incredible, because he would just go down and he would go, okay, whatever, can I have 5 minutes? And then he would give you this beautiful, art would come out of his mouth, and enthusiasm, and just sort of just gorgeous stuff. And Bobby was the same way. I wrote Bobby's column for the Times, and it was so easy, because he would just have this like turn of phrase, and you could use 2 or 3 of those little moments and turn it into something straight away. I mean, people like David Batty were just never interested. It was like, can I have a word? Nah, you're all right. That'll be it. And however long he was there for that, he just wasn't bothered. But you couldn't. I mean, he's not bothered now, is he? I don't know if either of you two have ever heard from kind of Bats since then. He just wasn't bothered, though, was he?
Keith, do you remember when we'd be training? We'd be finishing off training. Before we'd even get off the field, Bats would be in his car, and he changed it to a diesel because it was cheaper for him to go back to Wetherby. He'd have his fingers out the car going, fuck off, and driving out the training ground, and we're still on there. So he would showered and gone before with his fingers with his Rover 400 diesel, going fuck off and driving down the road. But on a Saturday, he was able to be a player, because he was phenomenal.
Exactly. For somebody who was such a great player, his love for football was just, minimal. And it was just like a job to him. For us, it's like, being a footballer is like a hobby. You're getting paid to do it. But it was like a job for him. We've got to go in, train here, right? I'll do the minimum I can. But as you say, on a Saturday, he was absolutely, sensational. So I didn't actually realise how good a player he was until he came to the club, and everybody thought he was just this little rat who just tackled that. But on the ball, left foot, right foot, ping a ball like no problem at all. But he was a great sight. He was a great guy to have about the dressing room, because he had a good sense of humour as well.
He was a funny man.
Yeah.
The truth, though, Warren, and it's not. I'm not just saying this, but you were a great team, but you're also great lads, and you had that incredible bond. You were good characters. That's why it was a sort of special team, and so you were you were a thrill to deal with because you were all good people and good lads, and there was that positivity about the place for most of the time, and so it was easy to talk to you. And then when things weren't going so well, you were all very honest. So a pleasure to deal with. No prima donnas. But...
I just tell you a quick story there. When we first signed, Keith was already there with like Steve Howie and Lee Clark, and the four of us had just signed, and we was at the Gosford Park, and the first training session. So it must have been a ritual. The first Friday, Keith, it might have been, where as soon as we finished training, it was all out with the boys. We was going to go and have some food, and everybody's there. Like even Mike Hooper, the old goalkeeper, we was there, and that really broke the ice because David had come in, Shaka was a great fella, and I knew Les as well. It was the players that was there beforehand had said, you're not going away the weekend. Friday is the first Friday after the pre-season. We all go down to Uno's, and then the rest is history. I can't remember too much about it, but we'd all be there together. But that was the players that was already there, like Keith, like as I said, Kitson was there, and Sellers and Bears and Rob. Would make sure the new players would come in, and you'd think maybe David would fly back off to Parrot, but that we was told, no, Friday we're all going out together, and that stood us in good stead. It wasn't Kevin, wasn't Terry Mack, it was players that was already there. Watto, Robbie Elliott, we'd all be there together, and that was the first really thing about, okay, we're in it together. And we did it when Tino came, and it was something that they all did it. So the players that was there beforehand, it wasn't like that new beginning. It was there beforehand, Keith, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean the same thing happened when I joined the club, and it is it is like an icebreaker when you're out and you just get to know people a little bit better over a couple of drinks, and that bonding, and that was something that we had abundance. That team, the bonding that we had in terms of how often did we go out. We used to arrange something maybe once every 3 weeks, and it was one of them. Everybody went. There was no excuses. The only people who didn't go was Kevin, Terry, and Arthur Cox, and you had Derek Zachary there, Chris McManamy, you had John Carver, you had the physios, and all the players, and it was great just to have everybody together, and just bonding in the right way, and. Things were going well on the pitch, so we continued that most of the season. And then it sort of got to about March time, and Kevin didn't really like us doing it then. And then results went downhill. So that's my reasoning why we lost the league.
Yeah, but you used to still go out.
It's punishment.
You was the one that still go out.
I was still a lot younger than the rest of you, so I was
That is amazing. Keith, I will let you go very shortly. I have taken more of your time than I said I would. Honestly, I'm just sitting here. I'm barely doing any hosting. I'm just loving the stories. It's amazing. Those of you who are watching, I'm checking on my phone. We've had loads of pledges come in during this live stream. So thank you so much. Do check out 1892pledge.co.uk and have a look at what we're doing. We are trying to raise money. It's a long-term scheme. We're really excited about it. It's an ambitious, exciting, happy project to eventually, hopefully, for fans to have a stake in Newcastle United. When eventually that happens, the case is that we're sold. Eventually, it has to happen, right? We're optimistic about that. Okay, one question for Keith and Warren before I let Keith go. I'm going to play a little video, and then I'm going to bring in Ian, who's dressed in something I'm sure you'll love, Warren. Let me have a look. Somebody said, which I think is an interesting question, where I find it, but yeah, here it is. Martin Lettin says, where would our 1996 team finish in this season's Premier League? It's interesting because it's such a different, George is saying first. It's interesting because the style of play is so different to how it was in the current Premier League to how football was played in 1996. Having said that, I think such an attacking-minded, sort of forward-driving team would do quite well. Warren, what do you think?
We could do a bit. We could pass the ball around. You had that, and then obviously we had that pace and energy of Les and Keith. So yeah, I think we'd be challenging. There's no doubt. I think you look at the qualities, like you said, with Davy Batty coming in, Tino coming in. Yeah, I'd be positive and say that we'd win it. Not on a canter, but we would win it.
All right, love that. Keith, what do you think? Agree?
Oh, of course. I mean, it's very difficult now because we knew what we were doing every week. We were 4-4-2, and that was it. There was no change to our system whatsoever. Whereas I think you look at most Premier League teams nowadays. Do any of them play 4-4-2? Do any of them sort of play with wingers? There's none of this sort of big man in the middle like we had Les and Alan. Crossing into, getting the ball wide, getting crosses in the middle. It's sort of just all gone now. I don't even know if I'd be playing in this day and age. It's because, as I say, no teams play with wingers, which is quite frustrating because I think I know I was a winger, but I think wingers are players that get the fans off on the edge of their seat because they know exactly what is in their mind, that they want to run at people and get crosses into the middle. But yeah, certainly we could mix it with anyone. There's no question about that. So yeah, I'm in agreement with Warren.
Keith, you'd fancy your chances against Luke Shaw, wouldn't you? You'd fancy your chances against him. If he's the best left back, I'm sure you fancy your chances against him.
I'd have a job getting round him at times. That's the only thing.
David Greenwell, who's watching, says we'd be second to Man City. We'd never win anything. No, David, we'd win. All right. Thank you, Keith, so much. As ever, just click out and enjoy your evening and enjoy your weekend. Thanks so much for joining us and for supporting the 1892 Pledge Scheme. We're so grateful.
Cheers, Warren. Cheers, George.
Good luck, Keith. Good luck, my friend.
Cheers, mate. See you soon. Thanks, Charlotte.
Okay.
Thanks so much,
Bye-bye.
Keith. Take care.
Cheers.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Oh, excellent. Gosh, I can't believe we're already an hour and 20 minutes in. I feel like it's been like 10 minutes of just listening to all these fantastic stories, all in support of the 1892 Pledge Scheme. I'm going to play you a little message from Thomas Concannon, who is one of the board members of the Newcastle United Supporters Trust, and then we'll bring in Ian and we'll chat more about the football team, more about the pledge, and hopefully a little bit about this is a real chance to dig into the top six and the Super League and slag all them off. So here's Thomas with a little message from outside the ground.
So last night I was one of the lucky 10,000 who got a ticket for the Newcastle United against Sheffield United game. 1-0 win. Football wasn't great, but it was sensational to be back in the ground. It really was. It was great seeing my mates again. It was just great seeing the stadium in all its glory, and it was incredible to be back. And it just got us thinking about the pledge scheme and how important it is for the fans to have a say in their football club going forward. We've seen how important fans are over the last few weeks with the European Super League and everything else that's gone on. It's important that we have a say, and that's what the pledge scheme is all about. Hopefully we'll have new owners in the future that will recognise the asset that they have in our support, and we want to go on that journey with them. That's what the pledge scheme is all about at the end of the day. We want to be in a position where we can have true influence on the football club going forward. Whatever league that we're in, but hopefully that's the Premier League, and we're pushing on for bigger and better things with brand new owners who really care about the fans. And by using the pledge scheme, we've raised a hell of a lot of money since it launched in April. A hell of a lot of money thanks to the people that have pledged. Over 5,000 people that have put some money into this. It's incredible. It's an incredible amount of people for it just starting. And that really excites us as the trust board, and it's just something we want to continue, hopefully with your support going forward. And hopefully it's not long before we're back in St James's Park, all of us together, 52,000, supporting a team and a club that is striving for greater and better things than what it currently does right now. But thank you for everyone's support, and hopefully, if there's any questions going forward, just ask us, and hopefully we can answer them, and we can push the pledge on and just get back to better things. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, there we are. I'm back. That was Thomas Concannon there from the Newcastle United Supporters Trust Board outside the ground. Full disclosure, I did ask Thomas to do one from inside the ground when he was there on Wednesday night, but he did not. So he went back the next day in the rain to do that video. So we're very grateful. You'll see now, Warren, that Ian's joined us with your absolute favourite Newcastle United shirt.
Oh, wow. That is a blast from the past.
Ian, you're muted, my friend, so let me unmute you. There you go. Oh, you can't. You have to. You've muted yourself.
While he can't say anything, it looks better on him than it did on us.
But as soon as Warren mentioned it, I knew I had it in the bottom of a drawer, and it hasn't seen the light of day for about 50 or 20 years or something, But I just had to get it out, because a lady friend of mine bought it for me, thinking I would really love it, and I bloody hated it.
There's nothing muted about that shirt, is there? Nothing.
No, we didn't win much in it, but
that is incredible. So for those of you who just watched there, that was Thomas talking about the pledge scheme, thanking everybody for their support so far. Thank you everybody for your support this evening. We've had donations coming in. It's absolutely fantastic to see. Just for reference, we are on over £85,000 now in just over a month. Is that right? Yes, it is. Which is absolutely fantastic. We're bringing in £23,000 per month on regular donations, which is just unbelievably great to start with. Obviously, we want to build this. Obviously, we want this to keep on snowballing. If you're looking at Hearts in the Scottish League, and you're looking at other clubs that have done this globally, we have a real opportunity here to make a difference and get involved in our club in a meaningful way. And unfortunately, in this world, meaningful means money. In June, just for reference, in June 2022, we should have £360,000. I think I may have frozen. So
I can still hear you.
Oh, you can still hear me. Okay, well, that's great. My camera's gone off. I might have to drop off. But do you want to talk a little bit about Newcastle memories? And I'm just going to try and fix my computer.
Well, I can talk about Newcastle memories from the perspective of somebody that was probably in the seats or the terraces, and some of the incredible places that I've been watching Newcastle over the years, and Keith Gillespie there. At St James's Park in the Gallagher end of the night we beat Barcelona 3-2. Unbelievable. And that was, by the way, before the ground was expanded to 52,500. It was only still at the 36,000 ground. But what an atmosphere that night. Unbelievably good, And Joe Willock was saying last night he thought 10,000 fans made a lot of noise at St James's Park on Wednesday night. So, I really would love to have him here next season, and to give the fans some excitement, to get the place rocking again, because we haven't had that for quite some time. Newcastle fans love it when we dig in and we get a result against. All the odds, the sort of the 4-4 at home against Arsenal, like those sort of results are brilliant, but or when you get a bad refereeing decision against you and you dig in and you win a home game, like against Southampton, for instance, down to 10 men, and so really fantastic, those sort of things. But we want to have an opportunity to actually enjoy some really good stuff as well, By the way, have I got your permission, Warren, to take this off now?
As long as you got a t-shirt on underneath, that's the only.
Yeah, it depends what you're wearing underneath. Didn't it sound brilliant though? Didn't it sound brilliant having people back in the stadium though the other night? And it was just 10,000, but even through the TV, it just sounded great. None of that fake noise nonsense. Real human beings making a great noise. And it's, I'm not sort of purposely bringing it back to to the pledge and the trust, except to say that it's that reminder that this is what it's all about. It's about people, and that without people, football doesn't work in the same way. It just does not resonate in the same way. You don't have the same emotional connection to it. It's not representative of you in the same way. And, this is what we're trying to say with the pledge, that it's about reminding us as much as anybody else that we should have a voice in this game that doesn't exist without us, that shouldn't exist without us in the same way. It was just so great to hear that voice again.
And we've got a real opportunity, George, now, because, as Charlotte was talking about earlier, the government have now, probably in a knee-jerk response to the Super League stuff, they've agreed to go ahead with a fan-led review of football governance. And I think that's a fantastic opportunity. And what the pledge scheme now does is it actually sets Newcastle fans up within a Premier League context to actually take advantage of that. And I really don't think that people can, overstate that. It is a fantastic opportunity now for Newcastle fans to be together through the Supporters Trust, through the pledge scheme, to actually have the bedrock to move that forward. And also, by the way, because of what's being done through the trust, the collective working together to actually influence what the government are doing. Because the one thing I'll say about the fan-led review, they've actually appointed Tracy Crouch, who's a Conservative MP, to lead the review, but she is actually a football fan and understands what it's all about. Charlotte, you'll be pleased to say I've changed.
Wow, a costume change. How long have I been gone? Oh my God. Sorry, everybody. My computer just totally stopped working and just booted me out. So I do apologize, everybody, for that. And I don't know what you've been talking about for the last couple of minutes, but I do see
We're just talking about the fact that I'm normally the back end of a pantomime donkey, but there we go.
Excellent.
I'll just touch on as well, because obviously, like George was saying with the pledge, and this is something that's been going on, for 2 years, 3 years, planning with people getting it together. And then because we see the Super League come on with the fans, and I said it to Terry Henry on social media, I said, now you know how we feel. Now you know that how their football club, whether it's Man United, Man City, Liverpool, how it's been run. And it's no coincidence that our scheme has been going a number of months and weeks, and getting up to nearly 85,000 and monthly money coming in that's going to obviously give hopefully a voice. You've seen now with Tottenham, they've got a supporter on the board who they believe in. And like we've always said, we don't want to run the club. We just want to have a voice, and particularly a club like Newcastle United should have a voice on the board to say, what do the fans expect? What do they like when they travel? I mean, look what the ownership's done at Man City to pay for the travel to go to the Champions. I know when you've got billions and billions and billions of pounds, it can be easier, but it's the small things that make so much for the fans. It's like, make sure the stadium's in a good set. Like Ian, I know you was at the game on Wednesday. Yeah. Not to have a concession stand open that you can get a drink, or they're the small things that mean so much for the fans to give you that excitement. You heard on the report there after the interview, you could see him. He was beaming. He was smiling that he'd beat a game at St James's Park. So, the club have to understand that and support. And if anything has come out of this pandemic, like Alan rightly said at the beginning, the fans are the heart and soul of the game, regardless of each club of the football game that we play. And that goes for me from start to finish. Without them, whether it's in Newcastle or down at Southampton, you don't have fans, you don't have the atmosphere, you don't have a football club.
I mean, the thing that struck me about being in the Gallagher end the other night, but there were no concessions open, so you couldn't buy a cup of tea. I mean, everybody knew that there would be no alcohol available and the bars would be shut, but you couldn't buy a cup of tea. And of course, it was a 6 o'clock kickoff, and therefore, for anybody coming in to the match straight from work, they couldn't even buy a pie, or something to eat, and look. I know that Mike Ashley's a businessman, and I know that with only 20% of the fans there, that it would be unlikely that the concessions would break even on a night like that. But the thing is, it's also about providing a service for the fans who keep the club going. And there was no question of that the other night. I mean, it might have took a couple of extra stewards to make sure that queues were, socially distanced and all the rest of it. but there was loads of room. It was quite obvious there was loads of room, but you couldn't even get a cup of tea. And I just think that was petty myself personally.
And you miss a chance again as a football club. You missed the chance to say, we've heard what's been going on, but yet again, there's still no rapport with the fans. There's no rapport to say, you know, if you had a personable, like, okay, we're going to get 10,000 fans coming, you know, make sure you know, there is some food there. There is something there. You missed that golden opportunity to give a goodwill back. Just to say thank you for paying your money, for turning up, buying a shirt. You can't even understand that you may lose £100 because of the time you pay the staff and, you know, getting out there. You can't foresee that goodwill gesture, that you can do that. And that's what sickens me, that they don't see that. They don't understand that you can't just do that for someone. You know, in this, what we've gone through, you can't do something because it's not about money, just about giving something back to helping someone out. It's ridiculous.
And it's also topical to point out that the Sunday Times, is it the Sunday Times or just the Times Rich list came out today, and Mike Ashley, for all that he's very sad that the 350 million that he's, or 305 or you know, whatever it is, hasn't been put in his pocket re the takeover. And George, you may have escaped a lot of takeover questions tonight because it's been a lot of positivity on the chat and on the comments, so it doesn't look like we have to go too far into it. You know, Mike Ashley's fortune increased in the last year by something like 700 million. Is that right, Ian? Is now like 2.7 billionaire. You know, if he loses 100 quid or something because he's letting people serve cups of tea, it's pocket change. It really is. It's for me so much about, and I get made fun of because I say low-hanging fruit all the time because I love that phrase, but it is low-hanging fruit. It's, if you think about the optics of it, it would be such an easy win to be like, oh, we've put this on because it's the first game back, and it cost the club, you know, I mean, maybe I'm being very naive about the mechanics and financials of a club, but I don't think a man who has been enriched by 700 million quid in the last year or so cannot afford to do that. Maybe I'm wrong. Is that right, James? Rose? Go on.
I mean, I just think that you know somebody's put in the comments, you know, why we're complaining about a cup of tea. It wasn't about a cup of tea. It was about you know the way in which the club treats the fans generally, and it was symptomatic of that. End of story. And all I was doing was using that as an analogy to you know. So you know, so from that perspective, what I think it showed yet again, that even after a full season, when we haven't had fans in the ground, there was very little consideration given to what would the fans require when they actually got into the ground, you know, and therefore it's not the fact the fans are an afterthought; they're not even a thought.
Yeah, and I think
I'll ask Jules. Jules, did you get a cup of tea in where the press officers? Did you get a cup of tea?
No, they can't do. I wasn't there because I'm in London this week, but I'm going to Fulham. I'm going to Fulham on Sunday. But they can't. I mean, certainly in the press areas, most clubs don't provide anything like that, and they say they don't, and that's because of COVID restrictions. But that was also before, you know, before these restrictions were lifted and before people were allowed back in. I can't comment on what the situation is in terms of fans because I just don't know, I'm afraid. But I mean, Ian is absolutely and totally right that you know, it's not an ownership at the club that are interested in making a fuss about Newcastle fans, because they don't, you know, they're not bothered. They're not bothered about that. It's gone way beyond it because, you know, he wants out, and so you know, if we're looking for that kind of stuff, we're absolutely looking in the wrong place. I mean, one thing that just to take this back to the sort of whole Super League thing briefly, I don't know if you're about to mention this, Charlotte, so maybe I'm jumping in, but it's sort of what I found very, very interesting about that was how not only how quickly they all folded, but how very quickly they then offered supporter representation. Some of them, certainly Spurs have done it. Did Man United do it as well? I can't remember. But the point is that reaction was to ordinary people protesting and saying not good enough. And yeah, there was a massive political backlash, and there was a backlash from the other clubs and from UEFA and from the Premier League and so on and so forth. But really, it was that visceral angry response from all of football, including the fans of those own clubs, to say, no, this will not stand, this does not stand. And all I'm saying is that this, the pledge is exactly about that. It's just about saying that this is your club. We have to do this for ourselves because nobody else is going to do it for you. Mike Ashley's not going to do it for you. He doesn't care. And so let's seize this moment to do something. We're at a very interesting time in terms of football and governance. And I just, I think we have a moment to seize, but we have to seize it ourselves.
I totally agree, and that is sort of the basis and the foundation of the 1892 pledge scheme, and what we're trying to do. There's been all kinds of fan protests, and I support everybody's right to protest in whatever way that they want to. I think that's part of the beauty of the country that we live in, and that's absolutely everybody's prerogative. But the thing that I think, and you might not agree with me, the thing that I think is so special about the pledge scheme is that it's a positive sort of it's a positive active way of trying to do something different, of trying to set yourself up for the future. I think it's easy to sort of to get to a position where, a lot of people say, well, you want us to be relegated because some of our animations say, what if we drop down the leagues? Absolutely not. I'm delighted we're staying up. I'm not delighted that we're probably going to see more of the same turgid football next season, but I'm delighted we're staying up. Someone will buy the club. If it's in the Premier League, fine. We have perhaps a smaller stake, but if they're open to talking to us, that's so exciting, and that's so promising. Koska, who is the person who was Tino's interpreter, says Liverpool announced yesterday they're setting up a supporters board. Really interesting, and I think that sort of thing is what we want to be seeing. But I also am very wary of it just being optics and lip service and it really doing nothing. Ian, I know that you've kind of talked about this fan-led review, which was in the Conservative Party manifesto last year, and they have now set up in the wake of the Super League and the Big Six and stuff. But I know one of your main concerns, and perhaps it has been alleviated. It's been a long stream. I don't know if that's the right word, but one of your main concerns was whether or not this actually is a real fan-led review into football. Have you had any more on that? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I do know. Yes, I mean, in Parliament, I helped to establish and we'll have as the Secretariat the Football Supporters Association as an all-party group for football supporters, and that's the one that I helped set up and chair. And the thing is, I do know that Tracy Crouch has already been in touch with the Football Supporters Association about their involvement in the fan-led review. Now, how that actually works out, this is very early days. We'll wait to see, but at the moment that sounds like an optimistic sort of overture to the Football Supporters Association, which is the sort of umbrella group for all the fan groups around the country. So that's positive, but I still have an overriding concern that and this is nothing against Tracy Crouch herself. I think she's a genuine person. She's a Tottenham fan. She is a fan. And I'm just concerned that from the government, from Boris Johnson's perspective, that having her as chair of the view means that it's fan-led. And that wouldn't be deep enough for me. It wouldn't be broad enough for me in terms of that inclusivity that needs to happen, in terms of bringing in fans groups to properly oversee a real review of the governance of football. Because it's quite clear. We've only got to look at what's been happening, not just in the Premier League, not just with the Super League, but in the English Football League as well, in terms of the governance of clubs at all levels. There's been some real questions to be asked, and it's proved conclusively that the game and the current administration of the game can't properly govern itself. And therefore, there may well be a requirement for additional outside regulatory body to oversee it, because unfortunately, clubs are going to the wall. particularly in the English Football League below Premier League level, clubs are massively in debt, overspending on a epic scale. I mean, I think the Championship last year on players' wages alone spent something like 110% of gross revenue, and that's just bonkers.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I saw a thing this week. Was it a petition? If you're watching and you want to correct me, go right ahead. I love to be corrected. There was something about an independent arbitrator. Somebody, Steve H, has said just to say, it was known last September that there wouldn't be any catering, tea, coffee, pies. That was down to the government, not Ashley. Well, a lot has changed since last September. Ian's shaking his head, and Ian's in the government, so maybe that's
I'm not in the government. I'm in the opposition, as a matter of fact. But I'm an MP. But the thing is, as of last Monday, pubs were able to open indoors with social distancing, restaurants as well. And I don't think football club concourses were precluded from that.
Okay, that's fair. I think the wider point, like we're getting a little bit stuck on pies not being available or tea not being available, but the wider point is that fans aren't thought of, or it wasn't made clear to fans that wouldn't be the case, and things like that. And that's what we want to change. We just want to be, we want to be thought of, and we want to be involved in the conversation. But yes, there was a petition this week about appointing an independent arbitrator of the Premier League, which was quite interesting. I think, did Gary Lineker tweet that? George, you might know a bit more about it. You're nodding anyway.
Yeah, it was Gary Lineker and Gary Neville and others started all that going and got the ball rolling with that.
So
I think it's up to 100,000 people already. Up to 100,000 people on.
That's amazing. They have to debate it then, don't they? At 100,000.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's not the be all and end all. I'm afraid to say I know something about the machinery of how this works, because the committee which determines which petitions get debated actually sprang out of the committee I've chaired for the last 5 years, which is the Backbench Business Committee. That's neither here nor there. But so once a petition on the government website reaches 100,000 signatures, it then has to be determined by the petitions committee, and they'll arrange for, I'm afraid to say, only a 90-minute debate in the secondary chamber called Westminster Hall. But at least then, once a debate of that nature takes place, there has to be a government minister there to give a formal governmental response. So that's interesting. And I think, going back to the point about the fan-led review, we wrote as the all-party group back in November to the Prime Minister saying, when are you going to bring forward proposals for the all-party review? We got a response from Nigel Huddleston, I think back in February, who was the sports minister, to say, well, it's not in this current session. We might bring something forward in the Queen's speech. Queen's speech was just last week, by the way. But of course, what also happened was the Super League thing kicked off, and like that, once they saw the response to the Super League across the press, the media, and across fans across the country, that was immediately the knee-jerk reaction was, oh, we've got a thing in the box here, the fan-led review, and out it came. So they had no plans to pursue it massively or quickly, but that precipitated that action. So it's funny that the Big Six, as they call themselves, might have done us a favour.
Yes, this is true. This is true, and it came at just the right time in terms of I'm going to keep looping this back to the pledge. As a trust event, this is a pledge event. We are all three of us, or four of us. There's four of us. Again, long night. Just to reiterate, George, Ian, Warren, and another man, Lee Humble, are the guardians of the money. The money that you put into the 1892 pledge is looked after by them. They make sure that it is not being used for anything other than its intended use, which is to hopefully buy a fan stake in Newcastle United, or in the very worst case scenario, they will vote on sending it to local Northeast based charities. Fingers crossed we won't get to that point. Obviously, charities, very worthy cause, won't be unhappy if that is the case, but fingers crossed we do get a say eventually. That would just be nice, wouldn't it? But I think that's the really interesting thing. We had a surge in donations when and pledges when that the Super League was announced, because it just highlights, doesn't it, how much it's getting, the game is being run away with by rich owners who aren't in touch with the fans, who aren't in touch with the communities, and the communities are such an important part of a football club. We've said it before. Why is Newcastle United worth 350 million quid or 305 plus the debt, or whatever it is? It's because of the fan base. You're buying a fan base. You're buying a potentially massive fan base if you want to actually advertise and push into like America or Latin America or China, etc. But you're buying a fan base that is so rooted in its community, in its club. And Warren, you'll know this from your time here. I mean, it's so stark to me listening to you talk about the club and why you got involved with the pledge, because you're not from here, but you played here and you felt that, like, I say here, I'm in London, but I'm moving home. You felt that, like, that passion and community, right?
Yeah, I mean, touching back to what Alan was saying, who was earlier on, to have Alan Shearer to be part of the scheme and the pledge. Within 20 minutes of it being launched, he was supporting it. Keith Gillespie, Rob Lee, Steve Howie, and the list goes on and on and on of people that supported it. Deck as well. So we've had lots of people supporting the pledge and fans. And it all goes back to the fans. When I went to the club from 1995 from London, moving up there, it was ingrained in me pretty early about how important it is to represent Newcastle United. If I didn't know it already, and I've told the story before, when I was doing a cool down after one of my games for Wimbledon and hearing the roar of the fans and being around and saying to my old teammates then, imagine playing for this lot, in playing for Newcastle. 5 months later, I am doing that. And to know how important it is to the people, and as I said, me and Keith, to have that responsibility, to embrace that, to have that power that if we do well on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Monday, that they've got the chance to have a good weekend and to enjoy their week at work. They're working hard Monday to Friday. So it's ingrained to me, and through Kevin Keegan to Bobby Robson, players at the club, but also I touched on when I did an interview with George. It was a big part of my life, my family. How well the people was friendly to me, and not just because I played for Newcastle, but because they were generally nice people and friendly people and wanted you to enjoy being in the North East, enjoy being part of their community, a part of their families, and inviting you in to have a drink with them or have dinner with them or just to talk to them on the streets. And for me, it was so refreshing, and it's ingrained in me and it's part of me now. Of that, it means so much. It could be quite easy for me over here just to, every now and again put a bit on the social media. Yeah, I support, but I felt the club looked weak and vulnerable and looked on the floor. And that's not the club that I played for. That's not the club I represented, and not the club that I was captain for. So that's why I wanted to be part of it. And it is unusual that you've got someone from London that is behind the club, but it's part of me. It's part of my life. It's a big part of me and my wife being married, living up there with the kids and everything else. And we've got so many good friends up there and so many people that I keep in contact with. And it's a club that, it's an old cliche, but I do love it. I love the club. I love the fans. I miss going to St James's, hearing the roar and the excitement. You just sense the electricity in the air when you go in there. And we ain't had that for a long, long time. And that's why I want to like this, and that's why I'm proud when I hear £85,000 in the pandemic that's been raised in a month. People that are going to be 23,000 every month supporting it. We don't want to run the club. We want a voice that listens to Ian about can we do this a little better? Can we help out? What does it mean to be part of Newcastle? What does it mean to be a fan of the club? And you either get it, or unfortunately you don't. And if you don't get it, it's your loss, because it's such a fantastic place to be around. I'd leave the sunshine tomorrow to be part of the football club, but that ain't going to happen. So I just enjoy my sunshine. So
a lot of people asking if you'll come back and be manager, Warren. So careful what you wish for. It's a lot more rainy in Newcastle.
Well, be careful what you wish for with me. It'll be fun. Whatever happens, it'll be fun.
But the word you use there, Warren, I mean, you know, you're absolutely 100% part of us, and that word is us. The word is us, because Newcastle isn't Mike Ashley, and it's not Steve Bruce. It's not the players. It's not, you know, it's not Lee Charnley. It's us. It's all of us.
George,
it's all of us.
And I'm proud of that. You know what I mean? I feel proud to be part of that, you know, of that time, that people, that area. It's not just, oh, okay. When people say that to me, one of us, that means something to me, because I know what it's like to be, you know, I know what they love being a Geordie and how much they love their area and their people and the club. So when people say that, I take that with pride, because it means something. It's not just a flippant comment, because, you know, when you go there, you're just one of their players and they like you to buy a shirt, whatever it is in the past. But when they say you're one of them, like he would say, that means something, George. That means something to Rob Lee. That means something to Speedo, to Shay, to well, Al's one of you anyway. But, you know, it means something to them because it's genuine. And we understand what that means to be accepted as being one of them. That's a big, big thing. Sorry, George.
I mean, a club, you know, but that's the point. A club, I say this countless times, I say this over and over again, a club is a collection of people. And those people, again, are us. They're us. And so, you know, to go back to the Super League sort of thing, in my naivety, I kind of thought that, you know, you get through a year of pandemic and no fans in stadiums. And so perhaps there would be this recalibration, you know, in football to actually see how important fans are to the whole experience. And the club would sort of recognise, you know, would recognise something and look to do something to sort of recognise that. And they did do something. They ignored their own fans even more. You know, I'm talking about the so-called Big Six, or in the case of Tottenham, that's quite laughable. But no offense. You know, they ignored their own fans even more, and they chased the money. And so, if football is us, if a club is us, if a club is people, then I'm afraid it's up to those people to try and do something better, because we know Mike Ashley doesn't care. You know, we just know he doesn't care and he wants out. And so, you know, we do have to do things for ourselves. A lot of the time that feels hopeless. It feels very difficult. But, you know, we started something with this pledge scheme. I think it's really valuable. I think it's really important. I think it's so important to remind people that this club is their club. And, you know, let's see how far we can go with it. Huge thank you to everybody who's obviously pledged so far. But this is what it's about. It's about us. It's about Warren. It's about Ian. It's about Charlotte. It's about everybody who's watching. It's about us coming together and doing it for ourselves, because no bugger is going to do it for us.
Absolutely. And that sort of feels like the right kind of note to end it on. We've done 2 hours of chats. I can't really believe it. Is there anything anybody's desperate to say? I'm going to clap us out with another one of our wonderful animations. But all right, you know what? We're playing on Sunday. Let's round out with a prediction, and I'll let everybody go and have their evenings. We've had so many comments as well, by the way. And if I haven't read out your comment or if I haven't put it on the screen, I'm so sorry. I'm seeing most of them. I think it's so incredible. I love seeing people that have pledged. I love seeing people chatting to each other about their first games. That's been a very nice little thread down there. That's been lovely. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you if you've stayed the whole time. But if you know, this will be up on the Trust channel. So dip in and out. Enjoy it over the next few days. Ian, Fulham, Newcastle. What is going to be the score?
Well, it's Newcastle, and George will be familiar with this. I'm afraid to say, because it's Newcastle, over the last number of seasons, I've come to expect now, and anything we get is a bonus.
All right, okay. George, do you want to go next?
Well, I'm so incredibly delighted it's not the end of season shootout, relegation shootout that we all suspected a few weeks ago. I was there a couple of years ago when we won very, very handsomely, and there were all those pissed juddies in that flotilla on the Thames, which was just, including you, Ian, well done. Should have known, should have guessed. But just an absolutely brilliant sort of occasion that was sort of tinged with a little bit of, sadness and worry, obviously, about Rafa's future. Be nice to have that again. I don't suppose that'll happen. I'm going to be positive. I'll say Newcastle to win 2-1.
All right, I'll take it. Warren, you positive as well?
I'm positive. So I'm going to go, and I like Scotty Parker, as I said, not only because he was obviously one of the players. I like to be a draw. So let's go down as a draw. Let him get a bit of satisfaction. But I go back to what we're saying. It seems that the club and the coaching staff are delighted that we finished at the relegation zone, which is set out there. I mean, let that sink in a little bit, that we're delighted. And Alan touched on it, at the beginning, to say that the manager's brief at the beginning was to stay up, and everybody seems now it's high fives everywhere. We've done surely our football club's worth more than that. Surely, if you're in charge of a club and got players, that you want more from that. Just hopefully we have a great summer, and it's been a tough year for many, many reasons. But things like this has given a bit of positivity. It's made me feel part of the club again with the fans, which I haven't felt. I've not had any contact with the club. So this has made me feel part of it, and something that I'm proud to be involved with. Getting to know, people again, old friends and new friends. So hopefully this can continue. But as I said, it's an honour. And if we can get a point, that'd be even better. But surely we want better for our club than just surviving.
Yeah.
And it's not just a cup of tea. It's not just a cup of tea and a pie, is it? Let's get back into Europe. Let's go and challenge Europe. Let's take 6,000-7,000 people to Paris or somewhere. Let's go and have some fun.
But Warren, all we want to do is to compete. That's all we want to do, to compete, to have a chance. But, going into so many games when you're just thinking we're going to get some more negativity, and if we're set up for a draw, the best we can get is a draw. And if it goes wrong, we've seen it this season all too many times when stuff starts going wrong on the pitch. They just didn't seem to know how to change it. And in the last 7 or 8 games, they've shown us what could have happened if they played like that for the whole of the season.
Totally agree. Yes, George?
Just very, very quickly, can I speak for absolutely everybody who is watching this? I know I am. I would follow Warren into battle. I really would. I hope I never have to do that, but I genuinely would. You're an absolute legend.
You are. You're rallying the troops. There is so much love for you in the comments today. There's been so much love for Alan. There's been so much love for Keith. There is love for all three of you. George, Ian and Warren, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Thank you for such insightful, interesting, funny and fun chat in support of the 1892 pledge scheme. Please, if you're watching and you haven't even checked out the website, go and have a look. It's a lovely website. It's 1892pledge.co.uk. If you have pledged, we thank you so much. If you have pledged one off and you want to have another go for it. If you want to change that into a monthly, we fully encourage that. Join thousands of other Newcastle United fans who are pledging their money to make a difference to their club. I'm gonna play us out on one of our videos featuring Norman Riley, one of the True Faith contributors, and his brother. Thank you so much, everybody, for sticking with us. Take care, and away the lads for Sunday.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you. Super Mac, Andy Cole, Ward Jackie, Mickey Quinn, best striker at St James Park, no doubt.
How man, not this again. Mickey Quinn never played for in the first division.
What's the crack with his pledge scheme then? Who's behind it?
How man, you must have heard about it. You're not on Twitter.
Aye, but I don't need to watch the Mickey Quinn goals. Do you know how many goals he scored for the tool?
It's the supporters trust behind the scheme. What they're saying is that when the club's sold, we need to be ready to buy your share in it.
Oh, aye.
Aye.
How will it do that then, mate? It'll be kind of pricey, that, like.
No, it's a long-term project. You can do a direct debit to hire in as much as you want.
So is the idea to get thousands of fans paying little to save a lot?
Spot on. The club should be run for us, and elected fan representatives working with new owners to make sure we're never getting this kind of mess again.
Has anyone else ever tried this, like?
Loads have done it to save their clubs. Hearts have raised 11.5 million doing this exact same scheme, pledging little each month, and they're about to buy that club.
Wow, that's class. How much do the trust want to raise then?
Few million quid at least, but they also want to be ready if we get relegated, and relegate the game like the Mackhams did. There's no harm in being prepared.
Read. What's the call again?
The 1892 pledge. Just get on the website. It's dead easy.
Sound. What happens if it doesn't work though? Like if Ashley never sells, or the new lot aren't interested?
Then all the money raised will be given to local charities, and they've appointed 4 gadgets to look after the money for them.
So worst case scenario, it'll be a couple of quid a month going to charity then?
Aye. Best case is we want a little bit of the club if it's sold in the Prem, or a larger part of it to your Leeds.
Ah, you can count me in then. Tickets due for a tenner a month. We have to agree on one thing.
Mint. Away then.
Mickey Quinn, Newcastle's number 9. None of the others even fit the laces boots.
Well, you haven't mentioned Sir Les, so it didn't start that again. Get yourself pledged, then we'll talk.
Fair enough, mate. 1892pledge.co.uk. Aye?
Aye. Get in, mate. Tell your mates. Keegan!